How it be when that NYC weather hit you?
It's not even that cold out here, man.
Ebonics, also known as African Vernacular English, is made up of a variety of dialects from different regions. The word is a combination of ebony and phonics, meaning sound. Ebonics consists of African grammar and phonetics and the English lexicon. To truly begin to understand the weight of Ebonics, we must begin to encapsulate its purpose rather than its definition, that of which involves its dual use as a mask to avoid confrontation with hostile enemies and as a demand for recognition of African American identity.
That the Queen's English that I speak so eloquently before you now is not my first language, no. My grandmother never used such diction when she spoke me up in the welfare line amongst the other dwellers. Or when she called down to me from the project window for dinner, no, we spoke a more southern fried English. This rhetorical recipe has been in my family for generations.
Ebonics became the mode of communication between West Africans and trade merchants starting in the 1400s. It essentially was a form of resistance between the captures and the captured. Both secret communication and literacy were forbidden by slave owners, but Ebonics was much more successful among slaves. For African slaves, Ebonics became so much more than rebellion. Rather, it aided their sense of self, and in some cases, it saved their lives. There are some different theories about the origins of Ebonics, or Pidgin, as it is sometimes referred to. One theory states that Pidgin is thought to have been created as a result of combining two or more languages, as it was not uncommon for slaves that were taken from Africa to share at most 15 different languages amongst themselves, since there are approximately 5.5 languages spoken per country within Africa. Another theory, hypothesized by linguist John McWhorter, is that African languages had little influence on the formation of Pidgin, in this case, Ebonics. He declared that in fact, African American vernacular derived from a hybrid of regular dialect from Great Britain to which slaves were exposed, a result of working alongside indentured servants. Decades later, generations of youth have struggled to maintain a balance between Ebonics and what is perceived as correct English. Many schools look down on students who express themselves through Ebonics because it is perceived as a sign of being uneducated, not a dialect. It is, however, an important part of many different cultures of African origin. Among youth, there is a recognizable pattern where they have a skillful habit of switching their English depending on whether they are at home, an informal situation, or at school.
Not my audience. My audience is mostly grassroots people. And I sound mostly like they uncle, so see the like I said, I sound mostly like they uncle. And I was cool with that. That sound good to me. Isn't. You know, isn't is not in my vocabulary. The word is ain't. Isn't requires my mouth to stretch in a way that it don't stretch. Isn't. And then I leave it out there too long, I look really stupid when, he isn't telling the truth. I actually almost black out when I say that.
On December 18, 1996, the School Board of Oakland passed a resolution declaring 28,000 black students bilingual. This was definitely a game changer, as it recognized that Standard and Black English are both legitimate languages. Being able to obtain funding to teach Black English, however, was quickly rebuffed by the government. U.S. Secretary of Education Richard Riley released a statement shortly after the board's announcement, declaring that the federal government would never use public funds to teach children in correct English. The uproar that followed the Oakland board's announcement of teaching their second language in classrooms resulted in a modification of the original plan, still recognizing language differences among Black students, but no longer teaching Black English.
My grandpa cooked dinner every night.
Third person singular, cooks. My grandpa cooks dinner every night.
Which linguistic feature is not in mainstream American English?
Third person singular.
Yes. And Marisol, how do you code switch this into mainstream American English?
My grandpa cooks dinner every night.
You just got 500 more points. He funny.
He is funny.
Okay, Ariel Barón, what's the answer?
He is funny.
Standard English and Ebonics are both considered dialects, but their status in society reflects the unspoken racial institutions in place. White proper English has become the standard in the professional workplace, while Black slang English is only acceptable at home or in formal settings. African American children are conditioned to speak a certain way at school, and it is up to the individual whether they learn the skill of switching between the two dialects or conforming to one or the other. Some African Americans find they are insulted by those of their race with ethnic slurs such as Oreo for acting and speaking in a way that is perceived as white. Behind Ebonics and Standard American English, there is a sense of credibility that has been divided into three different dimensions: competence, trustworthiness, and social distance. To test the differences in credibility among those who speak Ebonics and Standard American English, participants in Paul Mongo and Rick Garlick's study were to choose different levels of attractiveness of a speaker. The participants' characteristics were relatively similar, except for their ethnicity and their use of Ebonics, or lack thereof. In total, 9 videos were displayed among them. The experiment included Black Ebonics speakers, white Standard American English speakers, and a Black Standard American English speaker as a controlling variable to see the effects of race. The study excluded white Ebonics speakers, specifically because they have no credibility when doing so, as they are seen to be performing the speech.
Mm-hmm.
Can I get you something?
She mofo butter laying me to the bone, jack me up. Tight me.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Cuddy say can't hang.
Oh, stewardess, I speak jive.
Oh, good.
He said that he's in great pain and he wants to know if you can help him.
All right, would you tell him to just relax and I'll be back as soon as I can with some medicine?
Just hang loose, blood. She's gonna catch up on the rebound on the med side.
What it is, Big Mama? My mama raised no dummies. I duck a rap.
Cut me some slack, Jack.
Say Cuddy only saying we say be doing everything.
Chump don't wanna help, Chump don't get the
Say
help.
can't hang, say 7 Up.
Jive ass dude don't got no brains anyhow.
The speakers all touched on the same neutral subject of the different steps teenagers should take to attain a license. The results showed higher levels of competence and trustworthiness for Black Standard speakers rather than the white counterpart. This is a result of the novelty effect, through which the participants assumed the Black speaker would use Ebonics, thus viewing Blacks more favorably when they speak Standard English. Black Ebonics speakers had much lower ratings and competence, yet similar measures of honesty, likability, and attractiveness. White participants favored speakers of their own race, showing higher ratings of perceived competence. Blacks also favored white speakers, displaying high ratings of perceived attractiveness, kindness, and articulation. Overall, race and dialect can drastically influence perception. This aspect of perception should be accounted for, when considering the way it affects our race relations and behavior as a society.
Local recipe has been in my family for generations, Grandma said. Big Mama hid it under her tongue because she had it for northern cities doing a great migration. Scholars call it African-American vernacular English, but my guys, they call it slang. The man calls it Ebonics. I call it America's Creole. The last remaining squad birthed from a European and African pidgin turned into the dialect of the doughboys, the base that appears in a rapper's rhythmic rhetoric spoken everywhere from the trap house to the liquor store, from the HIV testing clinic to the bus stop. Ebonics is the official language of the undefined black culture, the native tongue to the underrepresented black American. And long before I received liberal art degrees and stood unemployed in academic settings, I was born on the south side of Chicago and managed to garner up enough street cred from the School of Hard Knocks to qualify me to teach you all a few of my languages essentials. So hipsters, I hope you have your notepads ready. This is Ebonics 101. Chapter 1. Any English word that holds an I-N combination where the I becomes an A. Like Billie Holiday couldn't sing, that girl could sing. If Martin did all that walking, I wonder if him feet stank, traveled all them miles just to hear freedom rang. I wonder what he was thinking. Chapter 2. Any English word that holds an O-R combination, the R sound becomes silent. Like Emmett screaming, don't beat me no more. Like Rodney screaming, don't beat me no more. Like Trayvon asking, what is you following me for? Chapter 3. Any English word that holds an ER combination where the ER becomes an A. Like in the great quote from the linguistic scholar, Miss Lauren Hill,